It all begins with a simple, almost insignificant gesture. Just a selfie posted on Instagram, a morning like any other. Naomi Pilula, a Zambian lawyer, wasn't expecting anything special. She often shared moments from her life, a moment of relaxation, a beauty routine, a smile for her followers, nothing more. But that day, within a few hours, her world turned upside down. Under the photo, comments began to pile up. At first, just a few emojis, some simple reactions. Then the wave grew, and with it, the cruelty of certain internet users. They mocked her nose, criticized her face, compared her to caricatures. The messages grew harsher and more violent. Some even went as far as suggesting surgery to fix her features. Naomi, stunned, read these words stacking up before her eyes. Thousands, then hundreds of thousands of reactions. Cruel words, sometimes shockingly brutal. And in the middle of this storm, she posted a sentence, like a shield, like an intimate truth. I am not aesthetically beautiful. I am not, and that's okay. But I love myself, and I can be myself. And that is a form of beauty. These simple, honest words would soon travel across the world. But to truly understand their power, we must go back to where it all began. Naomi was born and raised in Zambia. In her country, beauty standards are not the same as those in Western magazines. There, round and curvy figures are praised. Young girls are encouraged to eat well, to gain weight, because flesh is seen as a sign of health and attractiveness. But Naomi was always slim, too slim in some people's eyes. Remarks followed her from childhood. You need to fill out your body. You're not developed enough. Words repeated so often that they seeped into a little girl's heart and left invisible scars. And then there was her nose. She had inherited it from her father, a feature she couldn't hide or change. A nose some people looked at with disdain, as if it were a flaw. As a child, Naomi learned to lower her eyes, to turn her head away, to avoid mirrors. She grew up with this constant feeling that she would never be enough. As a teenager, her life took a new turn. A brilliant student, she earned the opportunity to study in Australia and New Zealand. There, she discovered another world. But instead of finding acceptance, she faced new differences. She was often the only Black woman in her classrooms. Her hair, her skin, her features, everything set her apart. In an environment where beauty was defined by different codes, slim bodies, narrow noses, straight hair, Naomi felt even more out of place. She became a stranger to two worlds, too slim to fit her country's ideals, too different to blend in abroad. So she retreated into what she could control, her intelligence, her studies, her discipline. Years passed, and she built a strong career. Back in Zambia, she became a lawyer in the financial sector, an educated professional woman, respected for her competence and rigor. In her daily life, Naomi was simple. She worked 5 days a week, went to church on Sundays, took care of herself, loved fashion, her friends, her family. Sometimes she posted on Instagram without any special plan, just to share little pieces of her life. And yet, this virtual world would reopen a wound she thought had healed. It began with an innocent video about one of her favorite face masks. In the comments, people started whispering, "Is this a filter? Is that AI? Why does her face look like that?" Naomi read but didn't reply. She brushed it off. But a few weeks later, in June, she posted a selfie, and that's when it exploded. Hundreds of thousands of people saw her photo and felt entitled to judge her. Criticism rained down. Insults spread like fire. She, who only wanted to share a moment of her life, became the target of a tidal wave of hate. Naomi was shocked, wounded. She felt humiliated before the whole world. She thought about deleting the photo, disappearing from social media. But something stopped her. Instead, she wrote the words that sounded like both confession and liberation. I am not beautiful by society's standards, but I love myself, and that too is a form of beauty. Simple words, but powerful. Yet behind this display of courage, an inner battle raged. Naomie knew she wasn't fully healed from old wounds. She stood at a crossroads, give in to shame, or turn her pain into strength. And from that moment on, her life took an unexpected turn. Far from fading away, her voice began to carry. Her once modest community grew exponentially. Today, more than 85,000 people follow her, drawn to her sincerity and courage. Still, Naomie hesitated. Faced with such cruelty, she thought of deleting everything, disappearing from that virtual stage that had betrayed her. But one conversation with her sister changed everything. One evening, as she poured out her pain, her sister asked a simple but decisive question. Why did that particular comment hurt you more than the others? Those words echoed like a mirror. Naomie realized that deep down, her wounds didn't just come from strangers online. They had older roots, buried in her childhood, in that lifelong feeling of not belonging. Her sister's words acted like a switch. She understood she could no longer let others define her worth. So instead of deleting her selfie, she chose to keep it. A gesture that seemed small, but one that marked the beginning of her rebirth. To find strength, Naomie turned to her faith. She had always leaned on her Christian spirituality, and this time it was scripture that breathed new life into her. She reread Psalm 139, which says that God knit us together in our mother's womb and that we are wonderfully made. Those words struck deep. If her Creator had made her exactly as she was, then no one had the right to diminish her. Her nose, her features, her figure, all of it was part of a greater design. This conviction became her armor against hate. Little by little, Naomie transformed her pain into a message. She wrote publicly, I am not aesthetically beautiful, and that's okay, but I love myself and I can be myself, and that is a form of beauty. Her words resonated far beyond what she ever imagined. It was no longer just a response to critics, but a universal declaration, a cry of truth that touched thousands around the world. The mockery continued, but this time, it didn't shake her, because for every insult, she also received messages from young women saying, because of you, I feel less alone. Her community exploded. Where she once had only a few thousand followers, now she had more than 85,000. But more than the numbers, it was the quality of the connections that struck her. Young girls, sometimes very young, shared their pain. Some admitted they felt ugly. Others confessed they had lost confidence because of cruel comparisons. Naomie responded with gentleness and authenticity. She became, almost by accident, a big sister figure for an entire generation. Meanwhile, the debate grew. Many voices, like TV host and influencer Fumi Desalu, rose to defend Naomie and call out the cruelty of social media. Fumi reminded the world that behind every screen is a human being, and that careless words can shatter lives. She even told the story of a little girl crying, convinced she was ugly, who needed to hear over and over, "You are beautiful, you are precious. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." That story showed just how much Naomie's struggle was bigger than herself. It was about every woman who ever doubted her worth because of a look, a comment, or an unfair comparison. Naomie realized she was no longer just a woman defending herself. She had become a symbol of authenticity, acceptance, and inner strength. Her words, her photos, her simple acts echoed worldwide because they embodied a universal truth. Beauty isn't measured by conformity to standards, but by the ability to be yourself. Today, Naomie continues to share her life sincerely. She posts her routines, family moments, outings with friends. Nothing spectacular, just the life of an ordinary woman. But it is precisely that simplicity that makes her inspiring. Her followers see her as living proof that vulnerability can become strength and that shame can be turned into light. Her story is a universal lesson. It shows that social media, so often destructive, can also become a place of healing and empowerment if we dare to speak our truth. Naomie hasn't changed her appearance. She hasn't altered her nose or her body. What she changed was her perspective, and that shift, choosing to see herself with love, has inspired the world.